Welcome to Weird Web Radio, an explorer's guide to hidden worlds of the paranormal and occult, reality-expanding experiences, and the downright weird and bizarre. With your host, Lonnie Scott.
Hey gang, welcome to another episode of Weird Web Radio. I'm your host, Lonnie Scott. In this episode, we're going to be talking to Ansley SC. Ansley's a paranormal investigator, and she also goes by the name of the Spirit Chick. Ansley's got a pretty unique approach to how she does things. She's got this really cool, laid-back, positive vibe. She's fun, and she's always trying to do something a little bit different. In fact, she's on a mission to help the spirits that she encounters in her investigations. In her own words, she tells the stories of those who can no longer tell them. She gives a voice to those who can no longer speak. She's the light that guides those that are hushed in the darkness. With that said, I'm not going to get between you and Ansley. I want you to meet her and hear her stories from her own mouth. In the meantime, get on over to Facebook, join the Weird Web Radio Facebook discussion group, and if you're not on Patreon yet, please do. For as little as $1 or even $5 a month, you can be a supporter of Weird Web Radio and help make this show possible. Enjoy the show, my friends. Ansley, welcome to Weird Web Radio. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. For everyone out there listening, we've kind of gone back and forth to try to get this done more than once already. And finally, the universe, the stars, the planets, they've all lined up, and here we are.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, typically what I like to do right out of the gate is get something really good right away. So without further ado, what's one thing that you think or believe to be true in the paranormal without any doubt or skepticism?
I believe that something with the paranormal is that it's all energy based. It's entirely based around our energy and natural energy we don't understand. But for whatever reason, somehow it's all energy and it works that way. I've always believed that to be 100% true without any question.
Okay, so you say you think it's energy-based, but how do you come to those conclusions? What gives you that feeling?
I get the idea because our soul and our spirit and everything it connects with things that we can't connect with physically. So like with nature, for example, we connect with nature in a way that we can't really connect with other people. Or with like auras and vibes we get about people. We don't know that physically, but something on the inside gets that. And that's because it's a connection through our energy with someone else or through a different environment or whatever. And I've always found that when you listen to that connection with the energy and you follow it more, you start to become more open to it. And when you become more open to it, I think you can really understand that everything regarding the paranormal is somehow based on an energy that either we understand or we don't quite understand, or maybe we never will. But something about it has a connection through energy. It's like all living things are connected through energy.
Okay. And the word paranormal itself can be misleading and sometimes confusing for a lot of people. When you talk about the paranormal, what are you talking about?
Whenever I talk about the paranormal, I refer to the unknown, the things that I don't understand, the things that nobody understands. A lot of people will just categorize it with spirits and ghosts and stuff like that. But to me, it can include everything about aliens to Bigfoot to Yetis to everything that we just don't understand, everything in space, everything in the environment. It's all of the questions that we have that we can't answer.
Fair enough. And you call yourself the Spirit Chick, or someone gave you that moniker along the way. How did that come about?
Well, when I was getting my team together, my cameraman at the time, we were trying to think of a really cool name. And it seems like most female paranormal investigators take on the name Ghost Girl and stuff like that. And it doesn't seem like, I don't know, unique. And basically, I like to refer to spirits as spirits and not ghosts because, I don't know, to me a ghost is something that's more of a negative connotation to it. And spirits is more natural, more happy to me. And when I go on investigations, my investigations are all about positive energy and helping these energies and being kind to them, crossing them over, whatever. So it seems like it was a proper name as the spirit chick, not only because it's about spirits, but because it's like I have spirit when I'm helping these spirits. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like the way you describe that. It does have a different feel. It stands out. It's definitely more noticeable. You said something interesting there. You think that the word ghost is negative. Why do you say that?
I don't know. I guess from all my knowledge when I've all the way up until now of what I know about the paranormal, whenever people talk about ghosts, it's just negative stuff, bad encounters. They talk about ghost hunting and all this kind of stuff. And to me, when I investigate, it's not ghost hunting. I'm not hunting someone. I'm there to talk to someone to help them. And anytime anybody's ever sat down to tell me a ghost story, it's always been something scary or something negative. But I think, I don't know, that word just kind of has like a bad term to it with like haunting. Like something's haunting you is to say it's kind of following you around and like stalking you, in my opinion. And so I like to use the word spirit because it just seems so much happier, and I think it truly describes what we really are on the inside.
Now, when you say haunting and ghost and things, they have this negative sort of connotation. You are right to a point. I mean, of course, we have this cultural way of telling ghost stories, as you said, and they're always about the times when people were startled or scared or some lost soul was out there. But if you're not addressing things as haunted, how do you describe a place that you would be investigating?
I would say that I'll still say haunted and stuff like that. But I think when an energy is in a place, it's more of just like it's residing there, it's still lingering there, it's lurking there. It's not necessarily haunting in a bad way, like it's automatically a bad energy that's there to scare you, or it's going to be like Scooby-Doo and chase you down and all that kind of stuff. It's just more of this energy is present in this location and it's still there. And I don't know, I guess that's the best way I could describe it, is it's still there, it's still present, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's there with ill intention.
Okay. Now, how did you get started into paranormal investigation?
So when I was really young, I must have been maybe 9 or 10, I had an experience when I was once completely terrified of ghosts, believe it or not. I had an experience of this toy I got when I was a kid, and it was just this stuffed little white cat that was just a regular toy, and I got it from a thrift store. And I always knew there was something about it, but I didn't know what it was. But that night, after I got that toy, I had it laying on my bed with me, and I was cuddling up with it. And then I saw it in the middle of the night. I woke up for whatever reason. I saw it levitating around my room, and it was right in front of my eyes. There was no question to it. There was nobody else in the room. There was no way it could have been doing that. And then it sat down right at the edge of my bed, and I saw its eyes move. And then it's safe to say I ran out of my room and I didn't come back for the rest of the night. But after that, I was actually really afraid of spirits for years. After that, I wanted nothing to do with them. I would ask my parents to tell me that they weren't real so I could feel better about it. But my parents were very spiritual kind of people, and so they would always tell me, no, there is things on the other side, but they're not always bad. But then it was, I guess, I'd say 3 or 4 years later, my great-grandmother, she had dementia. And for those of you that don't know, it's this kind of disease that allows people to forget things, and they're not really present in everyday life, and they don't remember a lot of things. And she had this dementia, and we could see her kind of fading away. And eventually when she passed away, I guess my mom told me, although I don't remember this, I guess that I used to sit in my room and talk to my grandma, and I would tell my mom all these things about my grandma that I shouldn't have known at that age. And that's when my parents knew that I had some sort of gift. And I guess that's when I really started opening it up and being a little more comfortable with the spirits, because about a year later I started investigating.
Okay. How old were you when you started investigating?
I think I was about 12 going on 13 when I started investigating.
Oh, wow. Was your family supportive of that?
My parents, they were a little bit afraid of me being involved in it because I wanted to make sure I was being careful and everything like that. But they were incredibly supportive of helping me go to these places and film and helping me get equipment to talk to the spirits and stuff like that before I really channeled my inner abilities to be able to do it on my own. But because they were very spiritual based already, they were very, very okay with it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's just not a common theme. Starting early in the early teens with supportive parents too. That's great. Yeah. Now, how would you describe your investigation style from the time that something gets your interest to how you approach it, even when you go inside, and what you would use?
So what I usually do when I'm preparing for an investigation, a lot of times I feel drawn to certain places. And so I'll start by doing a little research about it. I'll dive into the claims of what people that own it claim happens there, of people who investigate it. I'll look at YouTube videos and articles. I'll dig up the history. And then I'll do this thing where I kind of read it all, I memorize it, and then I let it go. I completely forget about it. And then I go into the investigation because I don't want it to bias what I find. Because I find a lot of investigators that go into a place focusing on, oh, somebody got scratched in this room. Then their investigation is very based around that, and that can kind of bring about or manifest that same experience, and that's not what I'm looking to do. So then I'll go into this place. I like to walk through without any equipment. I like to go in every single room. I like to get a feel for it and see what my body picks up, first of all, and kind of decide the hot spots that way. Then I'll go through and do a basic sweep with like a digital recorder or an EMF detector or something that's a basic piece of equipment. And I'll just kind of see what the equipment picks up compared to what my body feels. And then after I do that, then I'll really begin my investigation and start going about to the certain places that I felt were the real hot spots and where I feel like I'm going to get the most interaction.
What was, what indicates to you that you're going to get the most interaction in a place?
I'm at the stage in my personal, like, spiritual abilities that I can pinpoint where an energy's at, where it's centered, who it is, what they're doing, if they're going to be open to communication. So, like, I can walk in a room and close my eyes and go, okay, so a man is standing in the left corner over here. He has a hat on, he has a very stern energy, and he's not going to talk to me. So it really depends on, I guess, the kind of energy I get from the certain spirit. But usually I just go based off of where I'm feeling drawn the most because I feel like my energy knows where it needs to be.
Do you actually physically see spirits? Do you hear them, sense them? What is your awareness like of spirits?
My awareness, it goes to the extent of I have very empathetic abilities, and I can kind of feel the emotions of people as if they are my own. I don't see spirits if I just look around a room, I don't see them. But if I close my eyes and I let my energy pick up on something and I'm feeling it in a certain area, I can start to see them when my eyes are closed. I don't know why it is that way, but I can pick up their traits a lot easier that way. But despite that I can't see them with my own eyes in regular daylight and everything, I can pick up an energy and look in that direction and start getting words in my head like cowboy hat, mustache, blue eyes, all this kind of stuff. And I kind of I've learned to trust it over the years, and it's been very accurate to me when I have. So I believe that's my intuition telling me the physical features of these people.
Well, that's really cool. It's like you have an Oculus intuition.
Yeah.
Now, how much can we rely on technology in an investigation?
I would say if you're trying to get scientific proof, rely on your technology 50% of the time. The other 50% rely on your body. No matter what your goal is in the paranormal, if you're doing something to interact with the spirits, I think it's important to use both technology and our bodies because they both tell us different things. Technology is very scientifically based and will give you scientific readings, but our body knows these things through our intuition when we trust it. and it knows what's really going on. And so if we can combine those two, then we can have a very solid claim at a location of, I feel like there's a man in here and he's very high energy. And then you start to pick up words on the obulus that say man, and then you get a really big spike on the EMF detector. Then it can really correlate and give you a very supportive claim of activity at that location.
You've said that during investigation, you listen to your spiritual senses and your spiritual skills. Yeah. What is that you're referencing, though, when you talk about your spiritual abilities?
I would say that whenever I talk about spiritual abilities, it's really just, it doesn't matter if you're psychic, it doesn't matter if you hear things, you see things, you get channeled through. When I talk about abilities, I just talk about your intuition, because we all have very unique, different abilities, and we're all at different parts of our enlightenment in our life, and that will give us different abilities on what we can do and what we can't do. But I always talk about it as in a form of intuition, because when we truly trust our intuition, that's when we start to see more of these abilities and we can really tune in a lot better. And so when I personally talk about it, I'm just talking about the feelings I get, the things I see, the things that I pick up. But for somebody else, it can be very different.
What do you do to develop your intuition?
There's a lot of different things you can do. I found that I can't do meditation to save my life. I wish I could, but I can't. I can't quiet my mind. That's something I'm still working on. But that's one of the best things you can do, is doing daily meditation multiple times to help quiet yourself and just separate and just tune in. You can make use of natural spiritual objects like crystals. Crystals are incredibly good for helping to tune in, like specific crystals like clear crystal quartz are incredibly powerful for using for your third eye to open it more. You can also, honestly, it's very simple, but I've found going out in nature and just separating yourself from technology and the daily stress and just connecting with the natural vibes that are outside has been an incredible help to me, as well as just always making time for myself and continuing to put myself in these environments where there's a lot of energy, so I can kind of pick it up and get used to it, and then start to try and understand what these different energies are and make sort of a guess about what kind of energy it is, and then find a way to support my claim and see if it's accurate.
What was one of your more worthwhile experiences, a place or even an object?
Like for an investigation?
Yeah.
One of my favorite investigations I've done, let's see. I haven't actually ever talked about this one, I don't think, to the public. There was this one I did in Virginia City, Nevada, and it's a very notorious place for hauntings and a lot of energy and stuff like that. And there's this place called the Gold Hill Hotel. And at the Gold Hill, there's this room 5, called Williams Room. And it said there's a man in there that likes to smoke a cigar, and people will see smoke and pick up cigar smoke and stuff like that in there. And he's not said to be a very nice man. And so I remember when I was first investigating, it must have been a year or two into my investigations, I went there, and I was staying there with my cameraman, and I was waiting for so long to pick up something. I was so excited about it. We brought trigger objects like a cigar and whiskey and stuff like that, but nothing was working. And all the equipment we had at that time was a digital recorder, a K2 meter, and our camera. And so we tried dressing up, but we couldn't get him to come out. And there was a claim that around 3 to 3:30 at night, this entity would come out and he would viciously shake the bed. And so I was extremely excited, of course, for that to happen to me. And it was approaching 3:30 and nothing had happened, and I was falling asleep. And I remember I was holding the camera, and the second I closed my eyes, I kid you not, the bed started shaking, the whole entire bed. And I jumped up with excitement, and I was trying to turn my camera on, but it wouldn't work, of course. And so the bed's shaking. My cameraman's still asleep, but he's like mumbling in his sleep, and he doesn't usually do that. And I get up, and I'm standing in the corner of the room just to watch this happen. And the bed is shaking so hard that the bedboard at the end of the bed breaks, and there's this huge crack in it. And then I go over to wake up my cameraman, because he still hasn't woken up, and the bed's finally stopped. And I wake him up, and he's talking in his sleep, and he's all afraid. And I was like, dude, you didn't wake up. He's like, what are you talking about? I was having a terrible nightmare. And so I've always thought that maybe the connection with that energy had a connection with his nightmare that he was having while the bed was shaking. Of course, he missed a very cool opportunity, but it does make me wonder if it somehow influenced what he was dreaming.
Oh, sure. I think any kind of energy, whatever energy that may be, I mean, we throw that word around like we know what it is sometimes, in a room that's it's causing, that kind of activity in a room and someone's sleeping. First of all, how you sleep through something like that, I don't know. I'm a very light sleeper. I'd been awake, but yeah, why wouldn't it influence the way someone's dreaming somehow? I mean, yeah, I would fully expect anyone to have nightmares in a room where the bed's shaking for no good reason.
Oh yeah.
It seems like you've experienced a lot of like really obvious physical manifestations of the paranormal.
Oh yeah.
And is there something that you're doing differently than others?
I don't know. I would say what I do different, I guess, is that I approach the paranormal a lot differently than most people. I get told that a lot, but I guess my main goal with the paranormal is not necessarily for evidence. It's like if I was there trying to talk to a spirit and they refused to come out and talk to me because they didn't want me to record them, without a second thought, I would shut that camera off because I want to have that connection with the spirit. It's more important to me than getting scientific proof. And I've always found that my goal for the paranormal is more to connect with the spirit and to understand them through kindness and like positivity and stuff like that. And I also like to cross over spirits and help the ones that don't get to be don't get their voice heard, those ones that we never hear about, the ones that are stuck here because they have something left to say but nobody ever takes the time to listen to it. My approach isn't, so to speak, about evidence or ghost hunting or for the thrill or anything like that. So I guess really that's what I do differently, and I've found that it does help me connect with them a lot better. In a sense, they will give me very, very good evidence because it's kind of like they're rewarding me for being so kind to them because they just want someone to connect with. You know what I mean?
Sure. No, I wish more people had the respect for, the dead spirits, human or otherwise, when doing any sort of investigation. It drives me mad when I see people out there yelling at ghosts, demanding to have someone speak back into the EVP recorder, or worse yet, I mean, there's history to a place. There's land that has its own spirit, and it's nice to see that you're out there being much more positive in your approach.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there should be more people that do that. I think a lot of people forget that these are people on the other side that we're dealing with, and they still have feelings and emotions, and this is their house that you're intruding, I don't think a lot of people think of it that way, but they really should.
Now, you said something when you were describing the investigation. You said you brought in trigger objects. What are for everyone out there, what are trigger objects and how would you use them?
So like a trigger object is like an object that it correlates with the time of the spirit and the stuff they would be interested in. So if it was like the Old West, for example, and you were investigating at this old saloon kind of bar thing, you might bring some alcohol like whiskey or like cigars or something that they would use there and in that time period, because that will help you gain a better interaction. Because sometimes spirits don't want to talk to us because they just don't want to, or they're not drawn to us, they don't want us in their space, whatever it is. But bringing in an object that they can connect with from their time period can be incredibly helpful for making communication with them. It's the same as if it was like a child and bringing in like a little stuffed toy bear or like a doll or something. They're going to see that and get interested, and then that will help them to come out a little bit more and make it much more likely that you'll gain communication with them.
Okay. Investigating the paranormal puts you into pretty close contact with death in ways that most people would never really experience or give time to consider. How has that influenced your daily life away from investigations?
It can definitely have good and bad influences in your life. There's been times where I've had negative entities follow me, attach to me, and stick around for a while and wreak havoc on my life. I've been writing a lot of blog posts lately about a specific one known as the Hat Man that's been haunting me lately, and I've finally been able to clear him away. But that's definitely one of the negative things about it. But there's also a lot of good, positive things you can count about it as well. Like, I've noticed since I've gotten involved in the paranormal, I've had a much different outlook on life and how I should be living my life. And when I'm able to be around this energy so much, I've mentioned it earlier, I can connect so much easier because I'm surrounding myself with this energy. And that kind of helps me figure out what I'm supposed to do with my life and my purpose and how I want to go about that. It helps me find my destiny, so to speak, or it helps me connect with people that I feel like I might have known in a past life and people that are like kindred spirits to me. And if I didn't have that close connection with the dead, I don't feel like I would be able to tune in and pick that up, and I would be living a very different life than what I'm living now.
Very well said. Now let's go back to the negative spirits. You said that there's a negative entity following you, one you're recently talking about called the Hat Man.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
So the Hat Man is a very, very notorious entity within the paranormal field. Most of the stories I've heard about him have never been good, but he's not exactly at the level that someone claimed to be demonic or anything like that. He's just a low energy. And at the time, I knew who the Hat Man was, and I didn't want to believe that he was in my place, in my apartment. But as over time, he started doing a lot more things that started to give me the impression that he was negative. At first, when I first moved into my apartment, he was already in here. And I remember the first thing I picked up about it was a man with a hat, and he was a shadow figure, and he had very clear eyes that were like a very creepy looking, very clear and pale. And he didn't do anything for a while. I would see him out of the corner of my eye occasionally, and I would pick up on him, but I never got any negative intentions from him. I couldn't really tune into him very much. And over time, my dogs started to pick up on him. They would bark, and they would start getting aggressive when they're not normally aggressive, and they were acting very out of their normal. And just recently, I had an experience where he not only opened a door and slammed it right in front of me, but also when I was standing in my bedroom, which is right next to my living room, and I was looking through the doorway that goes to the living room, I saw these hands grab hold of the curtain that was on my door, because there's a window on my door, and it ripped off the curtain. And I got this huge whiff of negative energy and I knew I needed to do a cleansing. And so over the past week, I've been doing this cleansing to help get rid of him. And I had to do a sage session multiple times, and I usually don't have to do it multiple times. But this entity did not want to leave. And he would, after my first saging, he would haunt my nightmares. He would give me very gruesome, very dark feelings and images in my dreams. And then I would wake up and I would see him standing over my bed. And so I knew I needed to get him out because he was getting too aggressive. And so I did another saging the other day. And it probably took me an hour and a half. And it usually doesn't take me that long to do a clearing. And I remember I was trying it. I was going so hard at it that I was sweating. And I was getting exhausted, and he wouldn't go away. And I had to go through every inch of the house multiple times, and then I was finally able to push him out. And over the past few days, I remember that next morning I woke up, and I felt like a completely new person. And it was crazy to me how much of an impact he had on my energy and on my life, because I felt very weighed down when he was here. But after clearing him away, I was very lifted up.
What do you think the Hat Man wants?
I don't know. This is something I've been asking myself since he was here. I just wonder if maybe he's just a negative energy that's feeding off the fear of people, and he was trying to scare me. Little did he know I don't really get scared because I'm around this kind of thing every day. But I do wonder if perhaps he's just a negative energy that feeds off of fear to grow stronger in order to do more things. Like, how he ripped the curtain off the window or something like that. I don't necessarily know what he's trying to do, but I do know he is a very negative vibe that I never want to feel again.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So let's say that there's someone out there now that's listening to the show, and they feel like they have a negative entity that's followed them home or has appeared in their home. But they don't know what to do. And you talked about cleansing. What advice would you give to them?
So what I would first say is to think about what you do for protection, because it's very different for everybody. Some people use religious objects, some people use prayers, some people call in spirit guides, some people will burn sage or whatever it is. But the important thing to remember is that in order for it to work, you have to believe in it. If you don't believe in smudging or using sage or anything like that, but somebody recommends it to you, it's not going to work, because you need to believe 100% in what you're doing, and it's all about your intention behind it. And so what I usually do is I like to use sage, because sage has always been very useful for me, and I connect with a lot of herbs and stuff like that a lot. So burning sage and putting your intention behind it and repeating your intention, making sure you're stern about it, is very important to do, because otherwise it will not work. You can also use, like, outside of religious objects, you can also use like crystals and stuff like that. They're very good for absorbing negative energy, and some crystals will purify it and bring positive energy into your atmosphere. There's also different herbs you can use, like basil. Setting basil on your bedside at night is a very good way to not only combat fighting nightmares, but also negative energy that's around you. And I like to set basil out at the end of my cleansings as kind of a push to the conclusion of it being done. You can also set salt at your windows and your doors, because it's a very old, ancient practice. But using salt is very good to keep out negative energies, because they cannot pass over the pure crystals of the salt, and they can't come in when you put it at all the entrances of your house. And so it's a good way of keeping them out also. But of course, always, like, what I do when I sage is I like to call in all my family members that are on the other side, or spirit guides or anybody like that, to help me push out a negative energy and just to help cleanse my environment. I've just recently started doing weekly cleansings on my live streams that I do on Sunday. So if anybody ever needs a little extra help, they can always tune into my live streams, and I can teach them a little bit more on how to do that.
Excellent. I like that. Yeah, I mean, it's always helpful to know what to do if you feel like you've got bad vibes in the house.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What drives you to continue investigating the paranormal? You've been at it for quite a while now, so what keeps you going out in the field?
My biggest drive to continue to investigate is the thought that there's still souls out there that haven't been helped, that haven't had their story told, that needs somebody. I have a very natural healing type energy and motive. I don't know why, but I do. And I like to help people, the living and the dead. And so when I know that there's people out there that are on the other side or that are alive, I like to go out there and try and make a difference in their life and incorporate positivity. And so ultimately, my goal isn't for entertainment or for evidence or anything like that. It's just the soul drive that I have to help these energies that are still here, to tell these unknown stories or the stories that get told wrong, to help somebody who is maybe convicted of something that they weren't supposed to be convicted for, and they died feeling that way. Like somebody that needs somebody to talk to, somebody to voice what they could never say, somebody that can help them move on, whatever it is.
What happens after you've helped one of these spirits?
I would say when it comes to moving on, I don't know what happens to them, where they go, but I know as soon as they let go of being here in this physical plane on Earth, there's this vibe that I get every time. And it's my favorite vibe. I'm kind of addicted to it because it's the best feeling I've ever felt. Whenever I help a spirit, the entire environment lightens up, and it kind of makes you feel like you're weightless. It feels like you're flying and you're not held down anymore. And there's just such positive energy that overcomes you. It makes you feel so happy. I can never stop smiling after it happens, and I just feel so warm and happy every single time. I don't know where they go. I don't know if they go to the next world, the next plane, another life, whatever it is. We really don't know with the paranormal quite yet, and we may never know. But all I know is that they're happy and they're not stuck here anymore, and it's a very good feeling. And I know if it wasn't something good that happened to them, I would not get that vibe about it.
Yeah, so after you've helped them, you just know they're not necessarily there anymore.
Yeah, they're somewhere else. I don't know where, but they're happy, and that's what's important to me.
Fair enough. What are your regrets or mistakes that you've done along the way exploring the paranormal, and how would you avoid them now?
When I was a younger investigator, I didn't know much about what I was doing. And I was doing a lot of research, but of course, you can only do so much research until you really get involved in the field and you have to learn this stuff along the way. I would say it's something that I've been really working on the past couple years, especially the past couple months. I've never been really good at strengthening my spiritual walls, and that's something that has had terrible effects on me. And when I talk about spiritual walls, I'm talking about like the walls you put up in the spirit world around you psychically to protect against these negative energies or from energies attaching to you or attacking you or anything like that. And I never used to do that when I was younger. I would always look out for my team, but never for myself. I would create these things for them to make sure they were safe because people on my team were not tuned in very much, and I wanted to make sure they were safe, but I never cared about myself. And so I've had some very negative attachments from that. Just one last year, it was actually around this time I got this terrible attachment that was very, very dark, probably the most dark that I've ever felt. And it caused me nightmares, it caused me a lot of pain, a lot of terrible things in my life. It caused me physical issues to the point of where I would cough up blood because it was so negative and it was affecting me so bad. And so since then, I've really worked on building up my walls, and I would say I'm a lot more protected than I was before. But for anybody that's getting involved in the paranormal, that is a must. One of the first things you should always do. I would go back and slap myself if I could and do it differently.
Yeah. For anyone out there, if you haven't heard me say this before, I'm going to say it again and again and again. And if you're going to be doing anything in the occult and the paranormal, I personally highly recommend you read, consume, and practice the skills taught in Jason Miller's book, Protection and Reversal Magic. So if you haven't got a copy, Ansley, you need to go get one.
I know.
In the last few years, what belief has changed based on your experiences?
Let's see. I guess I've always been, my approach has always been obviously for the good spirits, and I've always known that there's good spirits out there. But I've always thought there was a lot more negative when I first started, and that's mainly because of reality TV that I would watch, of these people that would tell you about the negative spirits, and they only ever talked about the negative. They never talked about the good, because I know now because that's not interesting and that's not what they want on TV. But the reality of it is that there's just as much good, if not more, than there is bad out there. And when people focus on the negative so much, that's what they get back in their life. And so a belief of mine that's always changed is that there's so much good out there and we need to start focusing on that more, because if we go out to these places that claim that they're evil or demonic or whatever you want to say, then we're going to draw that into our life because we're focusing on very negative energy. And if you want to bring positivity into your life, then you need to focus on the positive.
Oh, I agree. It's funny you say that because it's pretty consistent with every paranormal investigator who's been at it for a while. If you actually go out into the field, at least the ones that I talk to, you see these reality TV shows and it's demon, 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 demon. Right. And you get out in the field and it's grandma, grandpa.
Yeah.
It's the wandering lost soldier from an old war that you find out you're standing on a battleground or an old campsite and you didn't know it. And it's there. You very rarely do you run into these negative entities out there.
It's so true. That's why it's dangerous to only base your knowledge on the paranormal off of these reality shows, because they're not really reality. Their goal is to entertain you. A lot of people forget that. They need to remember that this is just a TV show and this is not what's actually going on. They're just focusing on the stuff like the Hollywood movies like Paranormal Activity. There's not one good scene in there about a spirit. It's all negative stuff because we want to scare ourselves, and that's interesting. But we got to remember that there is a reality world out there, and it's not that.
Yep. Now, speaking of all those shows, though, you have your own, right? In a way, on YouTube. How do you approach presenting your show differently than what others may be familiar with?
What I usually do is my paranormal investigations are very based around teaching people things that they might not know, like what we just talked about the dark entities and the good entities. I like to, not only on my investigations, but in vlogs, I like to sit down and just talk about certain topics and explain things, how I do it, how I've found it to be in reality, and how it works for me, and how I think it would work for a lot of other people. So I like to sit down and explain different kinds of spirits, different kinds of energy, how to help yourself if you have negative energy around you, whatever it is. I like to teach people about stuff, and I think that's a lot of things that reality shows don't really do. Is they kind of show you these things. Oh yeah, this is what it means if you get scratched, blah blah blah. But they don't really dive into the reality of it and deeper into it about the explanation of how to deal with it, what to do, how to get rid of it, whatever it is. And I like to really teach about what I'm preaching, so to speak.
Well, cool. And if people want to watch that show, what is it actually called on YouTube?
You can find me on YouTube at The Spirit Chick, and I also have videos now on this new platform on the internet called The Dark Zone, and you can check that out. I'm working with a lot of people who are very notorious in the field, such as Dave Schrader and stuff like that. So you guys can check that out, and I'll be there too.
How did you get involved with The Dark Zone?
They actually reached out to me, and they asked me if I wanted to be part of their group. And earlier in my life, when I was just starting out investigating, I had the opportunity to meet Dave Schrader, and he's very known in the paranormal field in different aspects. And I had the opportunity to meet him, and over the years, him and I have kind of formed a friendship and kept in contact, and he recommended that I join the team, and he talked to the producer of it and asked if I could be part of it, and then they reached out to me and asked if I wanted to do it.
And of course, you said yes. Now, let's say that someone out there is listening to this and they've been interested in the paranormal. They want to do paranormal investigations. They just don't quite know how. So what advice would you give to somebody that wants to get started, they just haven't yet?
The first thing I would say is to research, because a lot of people want to get involved in the paranormal because it's cool and fun, and for some people it's an adrenaline rush. But if that's you, step back from the field, because what you need to know about the paranormal is it's a very serious field of research. It is very dangerous. A lot of very negative things can happen to you, and you have to be very careful. You have to constantly protect yourself. So if you're there because you want to get an adrenaline rush, or because you want to play a game, you want to goof off, you want to provoke spirits, then this is not the field for you. But if you aren't that kind of person and you genuinely want to have this connection with the spirits and get scientific proof or whatever it is, then the first step you need to take is research. Anything that you can find, documentaries, movies, TV shows, books. I like to stick to the books the most, but it's good to see everything else as well. Watching YouTube videos, just pretty much finding every piece of research that you can to help you learn more about this field. And you need to really understand what you're getting yourself into in all aspects of the good and the bad of the paranormal. And remember that this is a very dangerous field that we don't fully understand. So there are things that could happen to you that you might not expect. You just have to try and prepare yourself all around before you really dive into the field.
That sounds great. I hope everyone out there who's ready to go feels inspired. is there a minimum amount of tools someone needs to get started, or should they just get out there after they research and have an experience?
I guess it really depends on your goal when it comes to paranormal. If you're about scientific proof, then you're going to want to use technology and stuff. If you're not tuned in, then you'll want to use technology. So, like, I'd say the basics for technology would just be a camera, even. And then maybe in the future, upgrade to like an EMF detector or like a digital recorder or something like that. You can even record voices on your phone. There's a lot of very affordable ways you can do this. But if you just really want to have a connection with the spirit and you don't really care about the scientific proof, I would say you should try to develop your abilities, as we talked about earlier. Even if you do want scientific proof, you could still do that because, as we talked about, it's important to have that balance. So I think the minimum is just really start training your body and then maybe a camera if you want to incorporate some technology.
Excellent. Now, you said in that answer that you like to rely on books. Is there a certain book, a specific book that you'd like to recommend to someone?
I've read quite a few books over the years. I'm kind of a bookworm. I really am a fan of the books that teach about more of the spiritual base, natural base part of the paranormal, which is more spirituality, like with crystals and herbs and stuff like that. There's a book by a medium. Her name is Kim Russo, and she had a show called The Haunting of, and I've always looked up to her because she has a very similar path in the spirit world as I do. She likes to help people and cross over the good spirits and focus on the good and stuff like that. And she wrote a book, I'm blanking on the name right now, but she wrote a book, just one, about all of her journey and about helping the spirits and how she does it and how she developed her abilities. And I would highly recommend that book to anybody who's just starting out or who wants to learn more, because it definitely helped me and helped to shape my knowledge in the paranormal as well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much for sharing that. We've pretty much come to the end of the show and covered a lot of ground here. Now, is there anything that I didn't cover you would like to say to the audience?
I've also wanted to talk to you about reincarnation, because I know we've talked about it in messages before.
Sure.
So I kind of want to talk about your take on all of it and kind of just dive into that topic a little bit.
Sounds good. Yeah. Now, I personally think reincarnation is possible, like just about anything else. There's certainly millions of people around the world who adhere to the cultural identification that reincarnation is not only possible, but happens on a regular basis. Do I think that our past lives mean anything to our current ones? I'm not entirely sure. If we have past lives, I think sometimes it might draw us or connect us to certain people, places, even objects. But how much that should influence our current state, I'm not so sure that it matters a whole lot on our current lives. As a practicing hypnotherapist, I get people who contact me for past life regression, and I refer them to someone else. I just don't work in that realm. I'd like to deal with the problems in this life with our current situations and go forward from there. But again, I do think reincarnation is possible. I think if we have past lives, it would help explain how deeply we resonate sometimes with people so quickly, identify with places so deeply, and see objects or feel drawn to a thing so mysteriously, just like why. And that could definitely lend some explanations. So what are your thoughts on reincarnation?
You pretty much said exactly what I was thinking. But I've always thought a little bit differently about when it comes to like the stuff in our past lives about like, I've always wanted to dive into past life regression as well and kind of understand what really happened to me and how I died and the stuff I went through and stuff like that. Because I've always wondered if it carries over to the next life, a lesson that we didn't learn in a past life that we're still trying to learn in this life, and that's why we were reincarnated in this life to learn that lesson, or like maybe we had unfinished business with somebody, and so we're in this life now to connect with them for whatever reason, and these people are drawn to us because our soul knows them, even if our memory and our physical being doesn't remember them. So I've always wondered if there's some sort of like lesson or something that's trying to teach us in our modern life now compared to our past lives, and if it's something that we need to learn in order to fulfill our destiny or become the person we need to be or find true peace or whatever it is. I don't know, but it's always been an interesting thought to me that could be why.
Yeah, it's a topic worth consideration. It's definitely worth your time in meditation, contemplation, whatever you want to call it. Is that the final word you would like to share that I forgot to cover?
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered about everything.
Great. I want to thank you again for being here, Ansley. I apologize on my own behalf of all the leapfrogging we had to do over schedules and times to finally get here. But hey, we got here, and here it is. It's been an honor and an absolute pleasure to talk to you and pick your brain about how you approach the paranormal. Now, how can people find you if they want to know more about the Spirit Chick?
You can find me on pretty much every social media. I have the same username on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. It's all at the Spirit Chick. And then, of course, you can find me on the Dark Zone page, and I'm just under the investigators and contributors, and you can read about me there and learn more about my stuff that I'm doing there as well.
Yeah, and if you guys are all on Instagram, I highly advise you find Ansley and start following her on there. She does a live Q&A. It seems almost weekly now, isn't it?
Yes, every Sunday.
Yeah, and so you get a chance to ask her questions that I didn't think of, questions you thought of, and see how she handles the barrage of social media.
I'll look forward to it.
Well, thank you all again for being here. It's been a pleasure to present this opportunity to see how Ansley approaches her investigations. I hope you tune in with us next time. And for anyone who's not a member, you can go to patreon.com/weirdwebradio to hear the bonus audio questions that we're going to be covering here shortly. For everyone out there, thank you for being here. Stay weird, my friends. Okay, gang, that's a wrap on this episode of Weird Web Radio. Once again, thank you all for listening. Now, it's time for you to go join the official Weird Web Radio membership. Go to patreon.com/weirdwebradio and you can choose your rewards and become a member today. Enjoy all the exclusive benefits, inside information, and plenty of bonus audio with each guest. Now, you can find the show at weirdwebradio.com and weirdwebradio.libsyn.com. The show is listed on Facebook and Twitter as Weird Web Radio, and you can find me on Instagram as just Lonnie_Scott. Please remember to rate and comment and share the shows that you like, and it helps others to find us in all the search results. Shoot me an email if you want to be a guest on the show, or if you know someone that would be a great guest in upcoming episodes. You can send that to weirdwebradio@gmail.com. Seek the mysteries and delights in life, my friends. As always, stay weird out there.